there, my name is Irene, and in this video we are going to talk about a couple different SketchUp camera settings that can help us move around and optimize the way that we view our model. So let's get to it. Alright, so to demonstrate the camera settings that I would like to discuss, I'm going to be using this model here, which has a kitchen, living, and dining areas. There's more house going this way, but I didn't model it, so this will have to do. Now, the first commands that I would like to discuss are for navigation of the model, and they are camera position, look around, and walking. Now, they can be found in two different places. Option 1, you can find them in the large toolset. They're these 4 guys here, and option 2 is going to be under your camera settings, and it's going to be these 3 guys here. We're going to talk about why it's 3 versus 4, but the idea of these commands is that they are supposed to help the viewer of the model feel like the model is real, because basically it allows you to jump inside the model as if you would be a person that is navigating that space. I can describe the feeling a little bit like almost like it's a video game and you're walking through the space. So it is very handy, especially for example, you're showcasing the space to a client, because a client can sometimes get a little bit confused if you're just kind of like orbiting like this around and then quickly zooming in and zooming out and doing all of these different, wild movements. It can be a little bit disorienting for somebody who is not super comfortable with 3D modeling. So the idea is that these tools are going to give a more human navigation setup for the model. Now, the first one is called camera position, and that's going to be this little guy here. Sorry, position camera, potato, patata. And the way that it works is you have 2 options. So option 1, I can click on my position camera, and then I can click where I would like the camera to be. So let's say that I want my camera to be on this corner here of my kitchen. So all I need to do is click, and bam, it's going to bring me to that position, right? One thing that I would like to highlight is the fact that when you position your camera, your cursor shape changes. Instead of being the little arrow that indicates selection, you're going to see this little eyeball. This little eyeball means that we are in look around command. Again, if you go here, see, look around is activated. And basically what this is going to allow us to do is when I click and drag, instead of orbiting, I am going to be, like the name says, looking around. And once again, the idea here is to replicate a more natural experience of a 3D environment, right? Like a human doesn't actually orbit a space. Instead, what we do is that we stand still and we use our necks to look around. And that is exactly what this tool here is doing. It's allowing us, we can look down. I mean, I don't have anything up, but you can see that I can look around. Now, I want to go back outside of my model because there's a second way that you can use the camera position option. And this is going to be, instead of just clicking once, you're going to click and hold, and then you're going to drag to a second point and release. I'm not releasing yet because I want to explain what these 2 points are. So the first point, the place that you click on, is once again where you're going to be standing. But then the idea here is that the second point is indicating where you are looking at. Because I kind of got lucky that I put my cursor here and then it was looking in this opposite direction. But sometimes you're going to position your camera and it's going to be looking straight at the wall. So this option here where I click, drag, release is going to give me more control. I get to decide, no, I'm standing here and I'm looking in this direction. So I'm going to release. So this looks worse, but like this was supposed to be better. So this is happening because there's a very important setting when you are positioning your camera, and that is your eye height. So this is basically where the camera is and then which way it's looking at in terms of like from the floor. So what's happening here is that when you are just doing a single click, I'm going to show you now again. When you do a single click, what's happening is that SketchUp is deciding the eye height for you. And you can see that it is 5'6". So because I just placed my camera, SketchUp is jumping to conclusions, basically. But when you place your camera by clicking, dragging, and releasing, then it's different. You are telling SketchUp very specific camera position and camera direction, and thus SketchUp jumps to the conclusion, then it's a different conclusion. It jumps to the conclusion that you're also going to want to set up your own eye height. So see, it's telling me that my starting eye height in this case is 0 inches. Now, I personally don't like 5'6". Maybe it's because I'm not all that tall, so 5'6" feels way too high for eyes to be for me, but it is something that you can adjust. And this is really cool because, for example, if you are creating a space that, for example, is going to be used by children or something like that, you could choose to actually drop your camera height so you get more of these like child perspective. Or if you're trying to create some kind of dramatic effect, you may choose to place your camera higher, or you may choose to put your camera lower. We have seen position camera, I keep on mixing them, and you have seen the look around. The next one that I want to show you is walk. So the idea of walking is, once again, to give a more naturalistic experience to the 3D model. Instead of, again, orbiting, panning, and zooming, the idea here is that, okay, I am inside this space and I want to walk around. So the walk command is this one here, the little guy who is walking. And the way that this works is that you are going to press your left button of your mouse, and then if you move your mouse forward, you're going to walk forward. If you move your mouse backwards, you're gonna walk. I think I'm tripping into something, so we're gonna talk about this in a second. Now you wanna be careful with this because if you move your cursor too much, it's gonna zoom past the model. So with this, you actually want to be very slow, very patient. See, I can kind of like move my cursor left and right if I want to, swerve in a direction or another direction. There you go. So see, all of this is, again, with the intention of creating a more natural experience of the space. Now, interestingly enough, you will notice that when you are working with the walk command, if you press the wheel of your mouse, it's not going to orbit, and instead it's going to switch to look around. So again, the whole point of this thing is to give us a cohesive experience of you're just like walking in this space. Now, the reason that I turned here is because I want to show you something in particular. So here I have these kitchen islands. So let's say I'm going to walk towards it, right? So I'm going to start walking very slowly. Yes, yes. And oh, what the hell is going on? Well, what's happening here is that the walk command actually activates basically collision detection. Sketchup recognizes the geometry in the model and it recognizes it as an obstacle. So this is actually really, really nice because, again, all of these tools are focused on creating these like very human, very real experience of the space. And this collision is going to help navigate the model in a more realistic way, right? Like if there's a kitchen island in the middle of your kitchen, you can't just walk past it. Like you're going to have to walk around it. So that means that I would have to look around here, and then I would have to start walking, maybe switch a little bit to look, walk, look, and so on. Oh God, my camera has dropped. Whoops, there we go. See? So the idea overall is to give a more natural experience of the space to the viewer. Now, personally, I find that sometimes it can be a little bit finicky. Like I find it gives me a lot of like misbehaviors, let's say, but it is a really cool tool. Again, especially if you are showing a model to a client, like in person live, this is much more natural for the client than you orbiting and panning and zooming violently. Now, the other tool that is super, super important is called field of view, and it's this guy over here. Now, in the camera settings, you're not going to find it here, and instead it's here. I don't know why. Again, SketchUp is weird sometimes. But the idea of the field of view is that it is going to help us basically better showcase the model. So has this happened to you? Where like I'm trying to get inside my model and I keep on getting this problem where I keep on getting like, and then you keep on clipping into the wall. Like let's say I'm going to zoom out and you get this. This means that I basically gotten kicked out of the model. Now, obviously, as I already demonstrated, using the position camera is going to help us for the most part solve this problem, but it's not great. And again, the smaller the space that you're designing, the more you're going to encounter this issue where you kind of like orbit inside a wall or outside the model, or things are kind of like awkward. So field of view is going to help us solve this problem. Now, field of view is basically based on the principles of photography. And the way that works is the following. So in real world photography, you have this thing called field of view, which basically means how much of the scene your camera is capturing. Now, for context, this is based on the way that eyes work. So human eyes, basically, if you're counting for where your nose is, are going to have a field of view of about 45 degrees. So that means from where your nose is, you're going to go 45, 45, and this is how much we humans can see. right? Other animals have different field of views. For example, animals of prey like bunnies or horses, they have almost like 180 because they have their eyes on the side. So, biology lesson and photography lesson aside, the idea is that in the context of SketchUp, field of view is basically going to allow us to expand how much of the space the camera is capturing. Now, if I activate my field of view, which is this guy over here, you're going to see that the default field of view that SketchUp starts with is 35 degrees. Now, again, if you remember what I was saying about the human eye being 45 degrees, this means that the starting SketchUp field of view is narrower than what we humans would perceive. And this is why you may have noticed while you are experiencing your models that they tend to feel constrained, like the view is too tight. It's because we don't see things this way. So look what's going to happen if I switch this to 45. There you go. So see, now I'm going to zoom out a little bit and look how much more I can see, before I get kicked out. This feels more natural. This feels more like the way that we humans see spaces, right? So this is what we want to try to aim. Now, it is important to understand when you're working with field of view, there is a minimum and a maximum that you should take into consideration. So in my personal opinion, I think that 35 is already pushing it in terms of like narrow camera. To me, the minimum should be 40, 45 degrees. But from there, if you are working with smaller spaces, like this is a spacious kitchen overall. So like I don't really need to go that hard. But for example, if you would be doing a rendering of a bathroom or maybe a walk-in closet, you may notice that even these 45 degree feels kind of narrow. So in those cases, you can push it to something like 60. I would say even 65 if you're feeling aggressive. So if I go 65, enter, you're going to see that now I get so much more exposure. Like look how much I can zoom out before I basically get kicked out. Like I can see almost like the entire kitchen. Now, you want to be careful with this because like all things in life, too much can be a bad thing. So one way or another. So if I click and go move my cursor down, this is going to increase my field of view. So the maximum is 120. And this is what you get. This looks super trippy. This makes me kind of dizzy. It looks like the house is falling through a black hole. I don't like it. So you don't want to take the field of view to its maximum extreme. And the same thing in the other direction. So if I have my field of view active and I left click my mouse and I move my cursor up, it's going to reduce my field of view up to a minimum of 1 degree. This is what we would usually refer to as a isometric view, right? There's basically no distortion due to perspective. Now, there is an easier way to get this in SketchUp, and we're going to talk about that in another video. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend going with lower numbers when it comes to the field of view. And again, my recommendation would be minimum 45, which is the way that we humans perceive spaces. And you can see that when I go to 45 and then let's click to position my camera, these feels relatively natural, right? Like if I'm going to try to push out, push in, there you go, before I get kicked out, there you go. Right? So this is 45. This is the way that we humans perceive spaces. And then again, I would say like the maximum that you can comfortably go before the image starts getting too distorted would be something like 65 maybe. And again, I would only really use this 65 if you're doing very narrow spaces. And with that, we have reached the end of this video. I hope you find it helpful. If you have any questions, by all means, feel free to add them in the comments and I will try to reply to them as fast as I can. I know that I'm not the fastest, but I try. If you liked it, you can subscribe and that way you will receive a notification when I post new videos. But otherwise, thank you very much for joining in. Thank you very much for sticking through and I will see you in the next one. Have a good one. Bye.